What's going on, everybody? My name's Jimmy Scalia. You guys are tuning in to the Third Floor Lounge podcast. I'm joined here, of course, with my co-host, Bill Hooper. And don't forget, we have a special guest today, Aaron Bell, big-time Panthers fan, one of my good old friends. Aaron, how's it going today?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Thanks for having me. Really excited to join.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, we're excited to talk about some free agency acquisitions we saw happen before the New Year's even started. And obviously, we'll have some Panthers talk along with that, too. Before we get to that, Bill, how are you doing today?
Doing well. I'm ready to talk Panthers football and free agency. It's all good.
Yeah, I'm excited. But before we get to some Panthers talk, and any football talk in general, actually, we just want to remind you guys to follow at High Spot Podcast on YouTube and Instagram. Guys are coming out with new content all the time. You're watching something right now. We have a Mets podcast out. And don't forget Brian Berger's show. It's all awesome. Bunch of new stuff coming out. And you're definitely going to want to keep up with it. Subscribe. Keep notifications on. With that out of the way, let's not just dive into free agency, but talk about some big-time cuts that happen. Kansas City Chiefs, there's two starting tackles, and Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz. They just showed them the door and said, "We'll see you later." No, they didn't even play in the Super Bowl, and we saw the impact of the offensive line in that game, and now they're being, kind of kicked out the door. Bill, what do you think of that?
Yeah. Essentially, COVID-19, I think, has hurt so much football free agency, and it's just going to keep happening because, teams can't afford excess players. Those two, Mitchell Schwartz and Fisher, they both had injuries. Like, I believe Fisher tore his Achilles, and Schwartz has been dealing with injuries, over the past few years. He's very injury prone. So it's like there's nothing they can do. They can't hold on to these guys who they're paying a decent amount of money if they're going to deal with injuries. They just need to kind of move on. Maybe try to draft well, get a few guys in the third, fourth round, some gems, tight end. Sometimes you can find gems on the offensive line.
Yeah, but this dude was running for his life in the Super Bowl. We just acknowledge this.
I get that. And that's
what's the plan? Like, what is the plan?
It's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge, yeah.
If I'm being honest, I don't think they really necessarily have a plan besides saving cap, because getting rid of both of them, they saved around 12 to 11 million for both of them. And we already know they're paying Mahomes a crap ton of money throughout the next 10 years. Even though you're able to basically spread it out, they're going to have some other, important pieces coming up throughout these few years that definitely are going to need the money more than their two bookend tackles. Personally, I think getting rid of Schwartz, though, was probably worse of the two. He played about 7,000 snaps almost without giving up a sack in like the past 2-3 years. He's pretty phenomenal, but it's a business. Things have to happen.
Yeah, I definitely understand that part. Obviously, it's still fresh in my memory of seeing, Mahomes run for all those yards in the Super Bowl. But something that was interesting, too, you think about it, Mitchell Schwartz wasn't there for, like, any of the playoff games, let alone the Super Bowl. Browns and Bills ones, he wasn't there. So they're thinking, we won those. All right, we shit the bed in the Super Bowl, but, I think maybe we could get by without him in those, but honestly.
With the Kansas City Chiefs specifically, like when you're paying, like Aaron said, when you're paying Patrick Mahomes that much money, you're going to have to cut some guys that you don't want to cut. And that's going to be Mahomes and the Chiefs' challenge going into the next decade. Like, you had him on a rookie contract. You weren't paying him anything. So you were able to win that Super Bowl. And now is the challenge. Now is the real challenge. Patrick Mahomes is obviously the most talented, best QB in the league. But if you don't have guys around him, there's 22 players on the field. Just one guy can do a lot, but not he can't do it all. So.
Nah, that's a good point. We did see Mahomes restructure his contract, though, this year. It's funny how, the NFL and cap space, it just changes every year. It's unbelievable. And we see he restructured it. So I did hear that they are going to be doing a little spending in free agency. But one guy they won't be able to sign because he has a new home. Well, actually a home. He's been there for a year already. Cam Newton has signed back with the New England Patriots on a 1-year deal. And Aaron, this subject's a little fresh for you as a Panthers fan. Definitely talk about what it's been like seeing Cam on a different team, what that's been like as a Panthers fan.
Well, to start, I think it was a big adjustment for most of us, having Cam around since basically the start of his tenure, watching him win Offensive Rookie of the Year to then an MVP and taking us to a Super Bowl. So seeing him basically go from the ups and downs his entire career with Carolina and watching him go to the Patriots, it's tough because when you see the Patriots, all you know them for was winning and having Tom Brady. So it's almost like, is he going to go there and get a ring that we did not get? But honestly, I'm happy for him. He's dealt with a lot of injuries these past couple of years, going from his shoulder, getting in a car accident, hurting his back, things of that nature. He's never really been 100% yet. And I think last year, not really having an off season, having a new team, having to learn a new playbook, things like that, I think it kind of held him back. But we still see he still has some freak athleticism, scoring 10 rushing touchdowns in an offense where they basically didn't really run the ball too much and play action, stuff of that nature. So he's still a freak, but I think it'll take some time going into year two. I think he'll be better. He has a good relationship with Belichick, which is not something you hear about very often. As long as they could get some weapons, because he's kind of playing with what Brady didn't want to play with. It's almost like, here, sign it, play with the scraps, and we'll figure it out, because the Patriots really didn't have any money. He went from being a star quarterback to getting a one-year deal back-to-back seasons. So it's tough. We'll see what they do.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look also at the Patriots offense. I mean, they're next to nobody at receiver. Edelman was there
No
to start,
talent.
then he's hurt for the rest of the year. And then you just got guys like, Sony Michel wasn't there this year. Rex Burkhead gets hurt. There's no presence at tight end. Offensive line had COVID opt-outs. I mean, it was unbelievable how much was stacked against Cam, really, in that first season with the Patriots. Bill, I know you saw
Yeah.
those struggles.
Didn't the Patriots go like 7-9? Like they still had a decent record, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for the amount of talent they had on that team, which is next to nothing on offense, they had some good defensive players that returned from last year, but when you have Bill Belichick behind everything, like there's gonna be a lot of I think there's gonna be a huge bounce back, even if they do start Cam. I think with an off season and when Bill Belichick's your head coach, you're gonna win. Winning 7 games with that roster is honestly impressive.
Unreal.
I
call me crazy, but I thought it was one of his most impressive seasons for Belichick. Dude, the amount of COVID opt-outs, it wasn't just you had Marcus Cannon. Okay, there's a huge, one of your tackles, your starting tackles. Donta Hightower, Patrick Chung. Dude, these are huge, big-time role players. This whole franchise is based off of key play from role players. And those guys weren't there at all. You mix that with the injuries and the new offense for Cam, plus no off-season program with COVID. And, they still found a way to compete in a very competitive AFC conference.
Yeah.
I thought it was – I was kind of impressed with what Belichick did. Don't forget they beat the Ravens that one Sunday night game. They were still competing with teams.
They played Seattle neck and neck earlier in the year. That was a close. That was a really close game.
Exactly.
So yeah, they could bounce back a little bit. I don't know if they're gonna be starting Cam necessarily. If they might draft someone in the maybe they draft Mac Jones and they go with him, or maybe they play Cam 3 or 4 games and then they put in Mac Jones. Because I think there's gonna be some different options for the Patriots. They might just roll with Cam Newton, and maybe he just struggled so much to throw. It just looked like he couldn't move his shoulder. It just looked so bad. It looked gross, his throwing motion. So I hope he does rehab better and stuff. But at some point, your shoulder just gives out and you can't really throw how you used to.
What are they pick 15?
They're around there. They're right in the middle. I think they're 15 or 16. So there's gonna be maybe Mac Jones still there. Maybe, I don't know. So
I've heard a lot of
have some
scrutiny
options
about Devontae Smith. I think that might be an option for them at 15 if they're really looking to get a number 1 receiver.
Because they could use weapons as well. So
yeah, there's a team that they've never even drafted a receiver in the first round.
Yeah,
ever. Belichick is not good at that.
yeah, seriously. Anytime he's just stick to the Julian Edelmans and the Wes Welkers, because that's where he's
literally
pretty good there. But I mean, if we're being honest, look, they tried to acquire Stephon Diggs last offseason, so they know they need help there. And one more thing on Cam before we move on to the next thing, we just gotta give a lot of credit. Obviously, Aaron, you saw as a Panthers fan, different things as if the post-game Super Bowl press conference, like leaving that.
Mhm.
And just kind of like other things that happen. I always thought Cam was a good guy that, obviously not perfect. Nobody's perfect. But when he went to New England, like he has, gone under a totally different change in attitude, I think. Like what super more like accountability is always there for him. Like the respect he has for Belichick, like, dude, no matter what, like he would go out there, games that he played bad, he would come out. He's like, look, if I play like that again, I'm not starting again. Like it's that simple. Like, and I think that's something that Belichick and that staff and the players really respected him for. And that is the reason. I think that's a huge reason as to why he came back for one more year, whether he be a starter.
Yeah.
They just want him to stay within that locker room. Like he's very well respected and like that,
Yes, of course.
But yeah. So yeah, obviously he's gonna be going back there. So it's cool to see Cam. Hopefully, I definitely want to see him find some more success. So I think we'll just have one more. Did you guys see that quote from the Texans head coach David Culley that Deshaun is their quarterback? No, he hasn't heard anything about Watson wanting to leave. Apparently, he doesn't know what Twitter is, or the outside world.
I think that could have just been a media quote, just him saying that because he's like, okay, I just trust Deshaun's coming back. Like, unless he's the most like out of loop person ever, when you're the Texans head coach and you realize Deshaun wants to leave immediately and he doesn't want to play for your team, the fact that he said that, either there's just no good spin to it. Either he's super oblivious or he's just trying to have this weird ploy to like be like, oh, I still want him on our team and I don't really care that he says he wants to leave. It's just there's no upside to that quote,
I think his coach is kind of doing their due diligence in a sense. I don't think they want to come at any players in a certain type of way. For example, Matt Rule, my head coach, had just recently came out and said that Teddy Bridgewater is our quarterback, even though this entire offseason we've heard the latter, that it's either Deshaun Watson or the draft at number 8, that Teddy is gone. So I think it's them kind of just being professional, like, hey, this is our guy. We're going to roll with him until we figure things out. Because especially with a quarterback of Deshaun's talent, I don't think they want to straight out be like, hey, Deshaun is available, and then people just throw them 3rd-round picks, 2nd-round picks, and take Deshaun for whatever they want. So they kind of have to play the field a little bit.
Yeah, I get that. But you know me, I'm going to always come with this stupid counterpoint. I think it's like, just be honest. Like, I don't know. I feel like the fans respect like a little honesty sometimes, like from organizations, like things like that. Like, for example, Chris Ballard of the Colts. Like this guy has come out, we know the quarterback, swaps that team has gone through, whether it be Andrew Luck, Jacoby Brissett, Phillip Rivers, now Carson Wentz, and he came out, he was saying that, there's a lot of teams that take quarterbacks in the 1st round. Doesn't mean it's the right guy. And in that quote, I'm like, all right, this guy's like honest. He's an honest guy. And then when I see these other franchises saying like, it's bold-faced lies, so it's like kind of lying to the fans. And it's like, for me, I guess it's more of a personal thing. I like appreciate the honesty sometimes of kind of like just saying in the moment, like, look, I'm not sure what's happened with Deshaun, but right now I'm just trying to lead this whole team. Like, but again, I do see the other side. He's a rookie head coach. I felt bad for the guy a little bit. He kind of looked like a deer in headlights. It's his first rodeo. And it's like, as soon as he takes the job, your star franchise quarterback doesn't want to be there. It's not easy shoes to really fill in for.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone wants to fill Bill O'Brien's shoes.
Oh, my goodness. No. Where is that guy, honestly?
I think he's in Alabama now. I think he's actually like an offensive coordinator or something for Alabama.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Wow, for Nick Saban.
For Nick Saban.
This man.
That's going to blend well.
What a crazy. He destroyed the Texans franchise, full stop,
Terrible.
Yeah, 100%. There was a time where they had Arian Foster and Andre Johnson, and people would love him.
Literally.
I love Arian Foster. I was a huge fan of Arian Foster. I love that guy. Great fantasy player.
He was great.
Oh, no, extremely. Probably one of the really first one-cut backs. Put one foot in the ground and just go.
Yeah, seriously. Like, he would have been way more of a household name if he didn't play in Houston. And as we know, Houston's a place where Deshaun Watson wants to leave. So, Aaron, what are the odds that the Carolina Panthers could possibly land this man and change your franchise around?
If I were to put a number to it, currently with everything that's going on, I would probably say no higher than about 30%. Why I say 30%? I feel as if, one, there's too many draft picks we have to give up. Even though we've had two of our stars restructure their contracts in Christian McCaffrey and Shaq Thompson, I don't think we're going to have enough money to give him throughout the years. DJ Moore is on his last year of the contract. He definitely needs to get paid because I personally believe DJ's a top 15 receiver. That's a discussion for another time. He needs to get paid. Jeremy Chin is going to have to get paid eventually, so we're going to have to figure out how to allocate money to certain stars without breaking the bank for Deshaun. And from what I've heard from certain reports, it would probably take us at least 3 to 4 first-round draft picks, and I don't know if we necessarily need to do that when it feels like we're close. Not spectacular, but we're not too far.
Personally, I think the one thing that the Panthers have going for them at the very least is that they're in the NFC, so maybe the Texans don't want to trade him to the Jets or the Dolphins in the AFC in their own conference. So they don't want to like run into him more in future years. Maybe they're like, oh, we just want to send him to the NFC. I think that's one good thing that the Panthers have going, but it's just going to be tough overall just because the Dolphins and the Jets have better things to give, you know?
Yeah.
If they, let's say the Jets, if they take the Jets offer, they have the second pick so they can pick their franchise QB and have all the other things that the Jets give them. You know, they can replace Deshaun. You know, I know Carolina has the 8th pick, but they have they'll have less options at the 8th pick for QB than what they'll have with the Dolphins or the Jets pick. So
Yeah, that's really interesting point you bring up too. And you know, I think the biggest concern for Carolina to make a move like this too is compared to the Jets and the Dolphins, I feel like they have the least amount of ammo. You know, regarding what they would give back in that trade, but you know, regarding draft picks. Now, look, they make that trade, McCaffrey's gone. That's really all there is to it. I don't care that Mark Ingram just signed with the Houston Texans, although I respect him a lot as a player and a guy. You know, Christian McCaffrey is going to be involved within that trade somewhere. Obviously, then you're going to be looking at draft picks beyond that too. And like Aaron said, like the Panthers do have some nice pieces in place right now. Like there's a reason Curtis Samuel is going to be a free agent right now. Why they like, you know, obviously they're choosing DJ Moore over him for the future. Even they signed Robbie Anderson last offseason. That's something they have. So, and you know, pieces on defense as well. Like you said, Jeremy Chin. Yeah, so it is a little tough. And also, one thing that the Panthers have going for them, Matt Rule, like, wasn't a bad season. You think back to some of those games, fighting super hard against the Kansas City Chiefs, nearly beating them, fighting pretty hard against a Green Bay Packers team, you know, only losing that game by about 1 score. Like, those are some games that a roster like that kind of had no business being in close, but I was pretty impressed with what Rule was able to do.
And I think that's one of the big reasons why we're looking so hard into quarterback is because Teddy went 0-8 in games that we lost by 1 score. So we only won 4 games. If you flip that, even if it's half of them, we could have won at least 8 games on the season. So to go 0-8 in clutch time when we had the ball is tough. So getting someone like Deshaun or someone you really feel like can transform your franchise is definitely the move we should make before filling out so many other necessary pieces.
yeah, I agree. I like Matt Rule. I think there are some talented players on the Panthers roster, and I think if they got Deshaun, I really think they'd be instant contenders in the NFC instantly, you know, which is why if they were to get him, that would be so big for their franchise. But let's say hypothetically they can't get him, right? And they're not going with Teddy. Are there any guys in the draft that you've gotten excited about at all, Aaron? Like at the 8th pick, like maybe Trey Lance, Mac Jones, maybe? Have you like looked into that at all?
So based on the state of the NFL and where it's going now, as much as I like Mac Jones's accuracy, and besides Trevor Lawrence, he might be the best pure passer of the football necessarily, I really like Trey Lance. I really do.
Okay.
Strong arm, big potential. And even though he only played 1 game this year, and we kind of were just like, okay, no offseason, throw him in, and we're looking at things differently. What he did back in 2019 to 2020 season, where you go 28 and 1 or 0 interceptions, that just shows that he's a phenomenal decision maker, and he's a freak. There's a lot of things he could do, and he's a dual threat. The way the NFL is going now, you got to be able to use your legs, throw off platform, off schedule. You have to make plays from outside of the pocket.
There you go. And that's the thing. Like, I think the Panthers will obviously be in prime position to draft Trey Lance, and even potentially, like, if they wanted to trade up, even like to get Justin Fields or make a move for any of those top QBs, like they're in that spot where they actually could do that. But that's going to be a thing. Like, Deshaun Watson's obviously number one. You want Deshaun Watson, but there's some talented QBs in this draft, and because Teddy's not the guy, there's a lot of potential, I think, for the Panthers if they were able to land like a decent QB in the draft.
Yeah, that's and something that I think that's really interesting too with it. Like Matt Rule to me is like kind of like he likes a project. Like he likes a nice project guy to play with. Kind of think back of PJ Walker. That guy was killing it in the XFL. Brings him as a backup quarterback for the Panthers this last season. And this dude came in a game, let it, albeit against the Detroit Lions, but PJ Walker started that game and they ended up winning. So it's like, I think he kind of likes that challenge a little bit too. And Trey Lance, obviously another one of those guys. Like you said, the limited playing time, it'd be a project, but something that he would definitely want to sink his teeth into moving forward, and whether that be to turn into their franchise quarterback, that'd be something interesting to see. Now, before we go, we do have to make one more segment break, and that'd be, of course, what is one free agent that the Carolina Panthers should target this offseason? And Aaron, we'll start with you with this.
I think our biggest need is probably cornerback. As much as we like Dante Jackson, I don't think he's a true number one. He has great speed. He's a ball hawk. I think in the past 3 seasons he's been with us, I think he has like 12 interceptions. So he definitely takes the ball away, but he's been injury prone. He can't stay on the field. And there are times where he has mental lapses, and he definitely gives up some big plays, even though he'll have some big plays himself. So I really like a number one corner. I think I'll take Shaquille Griffin from Seattle. We have some blood ties with him now that Scott Fitterer is our new GM. So I think that's a big possibility. We go out and pick him up and get ourselves a solid corner.
And him and Dante Jackson, that's crazy speed on both sides. Just wanted to get that in there.
That would be cool.
That would be awesome.
Me personally, I'm gonna go with Hunter Henry because, no matter what quarterback starts for the Panthers next year, whether it's Teddy, whether it's Deshaun, whether it's the rookie draft pick, like I think having that solid tight end who's as talented as Hunter Henry would just immediately help that offense like expand and become faster, and just they'll I think he'll be such a useful piece, and I think he's way better than Ian Thomas. So, the Panthers haven't had much talent at tight end recently since Greg Olsen, I guess. But I think Hunter Henry would be a good free agent for them to go after.
Yeah, definitely. It's pretty much said perfectly. Since Greg Olsen, like Ian Thomas is a pretty athletic guy, but to be that great tight end, a lot of offenses having an important tight end is so big because you need block, obviously catch, do everything else along with it. Now, my free agent is not as pretty as you guys. I'm actually going to go with Trey Turner, which, funny story, if you guys remember, literally on this day last year, the Panthers traded Trey Turner to the Chargers for Russell Okung. They swapped linemen. Okung started at left tackle for the Panthers. He was a little hurt and then didn't start. I think Greg Little ended up starting some games for the Panthers after that. And then also for the Chargers side, they ended up just cutting Trey Turner. So I think this would be just like a new thing because you look at it from this standpoint, they just franchise tag Taylor Moton, okay? Matt Paradis has been struggling a little bit, definitely at center for them since signing from Denver. So getting back a familiar face with Turner, I feel like it helps strengthen the interior of that offensive line. And don't forget, guys, the freaking Saints and Bucks, those front sevens are so tough to play against. Like, if the Panthers want to really make strides within the NFC South, those are the two teams they have to get by. And by getting by them, you have to find a way to block the interior of the line. So, like, as I said, not the sexiest free agent edition, but I think, bringing back a familiar face and Trey Turner, that definitely helps some things out. But with that being said, I think that everybody have any closing comments or anything, but I think that might wrap this one up.
I think that's good. Hopefully the Panthers can get some option at QB because Teddy isn't it, unfortunately.
Teddy is definitely not the answer, but I'm actually really excited for free agency. It's probably my favorite part of the year besides the season. I love to see where everybody goes. I like to see how the new additions end up panning out for each new team. And I think the biggest free agent this year, personally, is Aaron Jones. I think wherever Aaron Jones goes this year, he might end up really flipping the market or helping the team out that he goes through tremendously.
You better come to my Cardinals because we need a running back, okay? Along with a host of other positions.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kenyon Drake was not the answer. Most definitely not.
No, definitely not long term. But no, Aaron Jones is like, it's kind of crazy that they didn't franchise tag him or anything. They talked about doing that.
I think they have a lot of
he's a
faith in
talented guy.
rookie Dylan. So we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, that is true. That's true. So, like Aaron said, I'm super excited for free agency. So, guys, definitely going to want to check out. We're going to have a bunch of content regarding that. And obviously, we've got the draft coming up about 50 days away, something like that. So, there's a lot of moving pieces in the NFL. So, definitely keep your notifications on. Different stuff happening every day. And don't forget to check out the High Spot Podcast on YouTube and Instagram. Guys, follow us, subscribe, and look out for more stuff. But with that being said, from the Third Floor Lounge Podcast, I'm Jimmy Scalia. Bill, Aaron, thanks, guys, for joining me. I had a great time talking some football. And we'll catch you guys next time. Take care.
Thanks for having me, man. Always.